18. Now we're going to talk about the airlines and talk about while passenger check-in rules are more restrictive than ever because of that recent thwarted terror plot, what about the airport screeners? What do they go through? Joining us now to talk about the importance of a thorough background check is the president of Background Information Services, Inc., Jason Morris. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. You know, your company specializes in conducting background checks in light of 9/11 and the British recent foil terror plot. How well do you think the government does when it comes to doing background checks on airline employees?
Typically, the government is utilizing FBI databases to conduct the criminal aspect of the background check. Historically, the FBI records haven't always been the best out there in the realms of doing an actual criminal background check. They are comprised of mostly arrest records and little conviction records to back that up. And it's actually quite different than regular companies would do background screening.
What are some of the things that are looked at during a background check?
Well, it depends on the scope of the job and the responsibilities within that job. It's something that we tell a lot of our clients. It doesn't really matter if they're a CFO or a CEO or a receptionist. It depends on what the responsibilities are.
Well,
so
besides their credentials and their education, are they looking for some type of criminal history?
Yeah, and the criminal history has to be within the scope of what the job is under the EEOC regulations. So if somebody has a DUI yet they're sweeping your floors, it's not really relevant to that job. Therefore, that person would probably be hired.
Well, you say the FBI hasn't always had good records. What changes do you suggest should be made then in order to really avoid tragedies and terrorist attacks in the future?
Well, what we tell our clients is the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So the records are in the courthouses. So what we do when we're actually doing a criminal background check is we send a court researcher into every courthouse that the person has lived, worked, and went to school over the past, 7 to 10 years, and actually look for that name to see if there's a criminal record there. The FBI records come from different sources. If one day we're able to consolidate all of these court records into one either database or allow access to 100% of the courts, then the records would be a lot more complete.
If somebody uses an alias or a fake name, then that's going to be difficult, isn't it?
Well, we're going to identify those aliases and fake names as well. The first element of a criminal background check is something called a Social Security trace. And in that Social Security trace, we're going to identify every name and every Social Security number and every address they've ever lived at. And we're going to check those courts under those names and those aliases.
Well, how will a thorough background check eliminate the chances of someone looking really to make a quick buck and going against airline regulations once they're hired?
It's not, but the thing is it's the most basic part of any security program is knowing who your people are. So you can have the most sensitive badging techniques and credentialing techniques and all the technology to make sure with biometrics that somebody has access to a certain area of the airport. However, if you're not vetting the people that you're giving that access to, then your efforts are for nothing.
Now, the background check is done once before they're hired, but some airport employees are getting screened once in a while. Do you think that they actually should be screened, checked every single day?
No, I think that pre-screening them before they're hired and maybe randomly screening your staff throughout the year is probably wise.
And then I guess it would be very important for them to know that you are going to do these random checks.
Absolutely.
Then maybe you'd weed out some of the bad seeds.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of airports that are doing a very good job, and on top of what they're supposed to do under the government regulations, are taking it a step above that and actually hiring a private company to do a more thorough screen after that.
All right, Jason Morris, president of Background Information Services. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Em?
Thanks, Gwen. Coming up, we head down under with bestfares.com. We'll give you some hot deals on airfares to Australia. And we're also heading to outer